If you want to get great at jazz, the world is at your fingertips right now. Go to YouTube and type in Miles Davis. Listen to that. Learn to love it. Really get into it. And if you love the style, then you'll start playing along with it. And that's why I loved playing drums with the Beatles. I loved the songs. And I started jamming with them. And I can't believe, 2003, I get a gig playing with Ringo. He's over here. Give me a break.
God knows where it all
Jared.
Fantastic, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gregg Bissonette. I know you need no introduction in the drum community here, and I find myself in another one of these moments where I'm trying to pinch myself that you're actually sitting here next to me in rainy Abbotsford, or Abbotsville.
Abbotsville, as Stetton Moore says.
But thank you for coming out. I know you're super busy playing with Ringo Starr, and all the other projects that you're a part of, but I appreciate you taking time.
Thank you, Jared. It's just a huge, huge honor to be here. Growing up in Detroit and then going to college down in Texas, living out in LA. We just finished a Ringo tour, Ringo Starr and his All-Star Band, 30th anniversary tour. We ended at the Greek Theater. I went to my University of Miami to do a week of artists in residence and then hopped on a plane to come up from LA to Vancouver. One of my favorite areas of the world here, let me tell you.
Thank you for coming. So it's going to be a really, really fun lesson for all you out there. The first time I met Gregg, you were actually, I believe I was at DW. You were doing some stuff for Drum Channel.
Yes.
And I know you've had some stuff with education
yes.
there.
Yes.
You've also, one of the DVDs was with Hudson Music called,
yeah.
similar to this lesson, right? Musical drumming.
In different styles, right.
So if you guys haven't checked any of that out, you got to go check out everything that Gregg has. I'm sure it's on your website, greggbissonette.com.
Thank you, Jared. It is, yeah. Thanks a lot.
You have like the most double letters in any name that I've ever heard.
I've got people say, you've got one of the longest names in drums. I do. I have to buy some vowels here, Bob. Bob, I'd like to buy a vowel.
Okay, so let's get into it. Now, for those of you watching, we got this lesson is going to be jam-packed. So Gregg not only is a touring professional drummer, but you have a music education degree.
Thank you, Jared. When I was a kid, my dad was a drummer in Detroit. My mom played vibes in his band. And at the dinner table, I said, I think I'm going to go to the Berklee School of Music and get a performance degree. And my dad said, why do you want to get a performance degree? You already perform. You play all around Detroit and stuff. Why don't you get a degree like the sax player in my band? He plays all through the summer, does cruises all over the world, but he teaches high school band. And I thought, if I don't make it playing drum set, because all I've ever done my whole life to make a living is play the drums. I said, if I don't make it playing drums, I'd love to be in music and in education.
Right.
So why not get a music education degree? And I did from North Texas State. I love teaching. I love, the thing at University of Miami, I love being around the students and, giving back. I got to study with some great teachers. Tony Williams was a teacher of mine. Steve Houghton, Henry Oxtell, Jerry Hanspecher, Mark Bertacci. So many great drummers that formed the way I play, and they turned me on to different kinds of music and stuff. I wanted to do that for students.
So you guys are in for a real treat here. Also, I want to mention big thanks to Dixon Drums, Remo Drum Heads, as well as Sabian Cymbals. This is the first time we've had Dixon Drums on the show here, and this color is wild. Man.
Can I tell you about this color real quick, Jared?
So
my last kit, my signature Dixon kit, was seafoam green, because I always loved that turquoise seafoam green color in cars, growing up in Detroit. So that was a sparkle. And they're great maple, thin-shelled drums. They just really sing. And we were backstage, Jim Uting, the product manager, and we were backstage. Ringo came and sat at our table. We were eating dinner, and he was talking to us about drums, and I said, yeah, Ringo, I'm thinking about the next tour doing like a purple sparkle. And he loves purple. He says, purple, energy, it's great, energy, purple. And he looked at this plant that was on the table, Jared, and he says, but not like this kind of lavender light purple, deep purple, like the band. So we call this the Dixon Purple Sparkle Deep Purple, like the band. Bow, bow, bow.
There you go. Nice. Okay, let's get into the lesson.
Yes.
So, tips on becoming versatile. That's kind of what we're going to talk about. So, can you just tell everyone, what does it mean to you to be a versatile drummer?
Thank you. To me, a versatile drummer is someone that, I don't profess to be the best at anything, but I want to be good at everything that I can be good at. And that's always been that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It makes me want to practice drums and listen. You first and foremost, to be versatile, you have to like every style. At least you have to like the drumming of every style. I'm going to be really honest. I hope I don't offend anybody. I'm not the hugest Cookie Monster vocal fan. The kind of scares me, So I love the drumming, though. I love Thomas Haka.
So you can appreciate the drumming, but you don't necessarily. It's not as easy listening as you'd like.
Not that I'm an easy listening guy. I mean, I love Zeppelin. I love all kinds of vocals. Stevie Wonder is my favorite singer ever. But that to me, cookie eat drums. That to me is not my vibe. And also, I love hip hop. I love all kinds of trance music. I'm just not a super, super dark, explicit lyric rap guy.
Right.
This is not my thing. Not putting it down. It's just not what I would choose to listen to. But I love the drumming.
So let's get into it then. Let's first talk about jazz. And what we're going to kind of talk about is how, learning jazz, whether you like it, whether you don't appreciate, whatever, how it can actually help your other styles. So I know for me, there's no jazz scene, at least in Abbotsville. It's actually Abbotsford, just so everyone knows. It's not Abbotsville, but now I'm going along with it. So I'm going to call it Abbotsville. But
no jazz in Abbotsville.
No jazz.
That's an album title. No jazz in Abbotsville.
Well, I'll count on you to come up with that. but I still play it every time I sit down because I found that the more I practice it, the better I just naturally got at other things.
Okay.
And so can you tell me about that and how you would kind of teach this sort
That's
of thing?
the right attitude. Jared has the right attitude because in learning jazz, it'll open the door and unlock other styles. I want to go a step further, maybe a step back to being a kid in Detroit, 4 years old and being weaned on albums, 33 1/3 albums. After dinner, it was about listening. Right. Let's take the brushes on a couple album covers and let's go dig some jazz, is what my dad would say.
Right.
So he'd have his beer and his brushes and we'd be digging some jazz. And we'd be playing on album covers to Stan Kenton, Maynard Ferguson, Dave Brubeck, to Elvin Jones stuff, Tony Williams, Buddy Rich was the king. And we'd just play for hours, right? And I developed a love of jazz. Now, I'm gonna be really honest again, I would be nothing but honest anytime anyway, but I love the Beatles first and foremost. When I was a kid, my dad got tickets and we saw the Beatles and I was in the same room with those guys when I was 7 in 1966 and I'm going, I don't believe I'm sitting in the same room at Olympia Hockey Arena in Detroit where Gordie Howe and the Red Wings played and I'm watching the Beatles. Well, the Beatles to this day are my favorite. That's why I started playing music. But I loved jazz, I really loved it. And I encounter students and drummers that say, I want to play jazz because I saw Vinnie Colaiuta play at the Baked Potato in LA, and after his solo, everybody stood up. I said, that's why you want to play jazz? You should play jazz because you really love the music. Right. And I've had jazz players say, I want to get a rock gig. I say, oh, you want a rock gig? Do you like rock? Do you listen to AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, the Stones, the Police, the Foo Fighters? Do you listen to... No, I don't like that. Well, then why would you want a rock gig? Well, I hear they pay much more money than the jazz tour. That's not why you should listen to rock and love rock. I grew up listening to jazz, loving rock, loving R&B, Detroit Motown, Stevie Wonder, later Tower of Power, and bands like Snarky Puppy and Sly and the Family Stone and Afro-Cuban music in Detroit and Abbotsville. Not a lot of Cuban music, right? But living in LA, all of a sudden, all these great Cuban musicians like Jimmy Brantley and Changuito, they come and they play and they teach reggae music. I never knew anything about Bob Marley when I was in high school. Then the Police come around and Stuart Copeland, who looks like your older brother, he's all of a sudden, I can see that. He's tall, good-looking dude,
Oh, that's...
Roxanne! He's playing punk rock, and then he's playing reggae, and I'm like, oh, that's reggae. And all of a sudden, through Stuart Copeland and the Police, I got into reggae. So I think, like Jared said, he got into jazz because he realized by playing it, it would open other doors. I got into it because I'm a lot older, and when I was a kid, that's what my parents listened to. Right. And then I got into it realizing that, if you want to play ZZ Top Shuffle, you want to play a rock shuffle, well, knowing about Elvin Jones, or Tony Williams, there's a lot of similarities between Tony Williams, 17 years old, playing drums with Miles Davis, and Stuart Copeland playing punk rock in the Police, that energy, So these styles relate, and we've sort of picked 5 styles a little bit earlier. Jazz and how it influences other styles, rock, how it influences other styles, R&B, linear funk, a la Tower of Power, how it might influence Afro-Cuban music, and then reggae. So those.
I love your crib notes.
Yeah, I gotta put my notes on my Remo-coated ambassador, because what a great place to write your notes. You know, nobody can see them but you. Well, now the world knows. But I mean, they're writing my notes. You always have to have a Sharpie in your back pocket too.
Yeah, exactly.
Musician's best friend, a Sharpie and a Remo white-coated ambassador head.
So let's get into it then. Let's first talk about jazz, and I think what I'd like to hear is, because you just played a little bit there, but how you can go from one style, maybe do like a little 2-minute solo, and how it translates back and forth.
Yeah.
How those techniques and vocabulary translates to the other styles, such as rock.
Okay, why don't we go from jazz into rock shuffles or funk shuffles.
Okay.
So let me start with some jazz, and then I'll take it from the jazz triplet. This is the key right here, is the jazz triplet. It's not ba-da-da, 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 one and a two and a. Elvin Jones accented the third one. So this. And Jeff Porcaro with Rosanna. It's that meet you all the way. That triplet with the third one accented is what I'm going to play and transition to here. Texas shuffle. Still accenting the third beat. Led Zeppelin, Fool in the Rain. Elton Jones. Anyway.
Just like that.
Hey!
Okay, so that was fantastic. Man, especially...
Can I get that in writing?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Afterwards?
Even like the little way you threw in the double kick there, and it's very dynamic, which is, I know it's really hard to do. But
thank you.
So someone's watching this, and you've convinced them now.
Okay.
They realize they need to become a more versatile drummer. They want to learn jazz. What's step one for that?
Step one, here, that's such a great question. Jared knows the answer to that. I know the answer to that. Do you know the answer to that? Doot, 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 doot. Yes, Johnny, that's right. Listening to the source. If you want to get great at jazz, the world is at your fingertips right now. Go to YouTube and type in Miles Davis, okay? Right. Tony Williams, Elvin Jones, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Max Roach, Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, Louis Bellson, Bill Stewart, my favorite jazz drummer today. Type in Bill Stewart. Type in a song called We, W-E-E, Bill Stewart with John Scofield. Listen to that. Learn to love it. Really get into it. And if you love the style, then you'll start playing along with it. And that's why I loved playing drums with the Beatles. I loved the songs. And I started jamming with them. And I can't believe, 2003, I get a gig playing with Ringo.
That is
He's over
nuts,
here.
dude.
Give me a break.
That is crazy.
It's crazy. So that's step one. Is listen to
cool.
it.
Well, let's get into the next style then. Let's talk about rock. So someone plays jazz.
Yeah.
They don't want to rock. It's
rock.
Like,
Yeah.
It's not difficult enough.
Yeah, it's too bonehead, too simple. Well, it's not. Okay. Try playing John Bonham "Fool in the Rain" like John Bonham did. Right. Try playing like Ringo played on "Tomorrow Never Knows" with that perfect. He's left-handed lead. That perfect double. Try playing like Mitch Mitchell played with Jimi Hendrix. He's like Philly Joe Jones and Tony Williams rolled into one, playing with Jimi Hendrix. It's not a simple bonehead style. But the thing that it all boils down to, with all five of these, jazz, rock, Afro-Cuban, linear funk, reggae, the song. Oh, woman, oh, why I shot the sheriff. If you love I Shot the Sheriff, Bob Marley, you're going to want to play drums to it. You have to like the song first. Right. It all starts with the song. Ringo sees me warming up backstage, and usually before every show I'm doing this. He says, oh, you're doing that again, are you? Yeah, I'm just warm. Why are you doing that? Well, I play that drum solo in Black Magic Woman, and I got to get my hands going. All right. He says, I never sat down on the drums unless I was playing with the other guys. I said, you never just sat down to just... He said, why would I? I play in a band. And I went, that is so foreign in 2019. Right, it is, isn't it? Most people around the world never play with a band. Yeah. They never play with a bass player with a heartbeat and a pulse, Play with live musicians. Yeah. When you have to start off a song, some of our lessons are about intros, outros, how to start off a band, how to count off a band, how to end a song, how to get the band to end together. You're not going to get that just by jamming along with play-alongs. It's not going to happen. You got to play with live musicians. Right. So Ringo never just sat down and worked stuff out. That's the opposite end of the spectrum from the way we grew up, with our Jim Chapin book and the Haskell Haar and the stick control and then playing in my dad's band and stuff. But you have to love the song first, I think.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, well, definitely. When you love the song or the band, you can actually play along with it and feel like you're getting somewhere.
Feel like you're getting somewhere.
So then let's talk about the rock then. Do you want to show how playing like a rock groove within my little solo context can translate to these other styles similarly to jazz?
Sure. Well, there's lots of different kinds of rock. Rock's a big umbrella. And rock, somebody once said years ago that styles can be broken down into two categories. Well, Duke Ellington said good or bad. That's two categories. But somebody else, Kirk Covington, drummer from Tribal Tech, when I went to college with him, he said, he's from Texas, he says, Bissonette, you know what? It's either straight or swung. I said, what? He said, music, it's either straight or swung. And you can pick any song, and it's either triple bassed or duple bassed. Right. And that's true. That's true for rock. If you're playing Fool in the Rain, Led Zeppelin, that's triple bass, like Elvin Jones. Ding, 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 ding. Rosanna, triple bass. Rock and roll, Led Zeppelin. It's duple based. So you break down those styles, and in jazz, there's not a lot of duple bass stuff. Right. But rock players can be better jazz players. Take a gig in the middle. Okay, like the Brian Setzer Orchestra. You've heard of them, right? Yeah. They're a jazz band with horns, but they rock because it's Stray Cats and rockabilly and jazz big band all combined. So to be able to do that, you've got to think about jazz turned into rock from, to me, Louis Prima. Louis Prima, just the gigolo, and he also, you gotta jump, jive, and wail, the drummer. Bill Haley and the Comets, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, gone. That drummer's still alive, and Ringo says that to him was the first rock and roll, even before Elvis and stuff. So that kind of Bill Haley and the Comets style, that's jazz based. A lot of jazz players, Hal Blaine was originally a jazz player. So many guys started off as jazz players, and then they got into rock because they could really appreciate it, and they kept that swing part. But how rock would help your jazz playing, I think to me, rock is based on kick and snare. It's this. When I hear a lot of rock players try to play jazz, they think, oh, it's jazz, so I gotta be really light on the cymbal. and it's like way out of balance. With jazz, it's the ride cymbal that leads the way, and the bass drum and snare drum are like salt and pepper. I've heard a lot of rock players, I've heard a lot of jazz players try to play rock, and they're so heavy-handed. Rock starts from the bass drum. Bop, you know, so they'll play really heavy-handed, but there's no kick and snare, and it'll sound like this. It's got to be, you know. Name that song. That's right. Back in black, hit the sack. So they really do relate.
How many coffees did you have today?
I've had 6. But each one of them was a quad espresso.
No wonder.
So that's 24. 6 times 4. I never liked math, but I think it's 24.
Okay, funk. Or
Funk.
Power feel.
Okay, so who's heard out there of the great Cuban originator of songo, Changuito? Jose Luis Quintana. He came to Los Angeles and gave some lessons 20 years ago. Carlos Vega and I, a bunch of us were taking lessons from him. And he is the guy that took an electronic, I think it was a Simmons kit that somebody had left over in Cuba, and he's standing up playing timbales, and he kicks the bass drum, and some toms, starts playing some kick drum and these salsa grooves, right? Lo and behold, I love when people say that. That kind of just sums it up and lets you know that something's coming. Lo and behold, in his Cuban dialect, zero English, he says, David Garibaldi. I go, Changuito's a David Garibaldi guy. He's a Tower of Power guy. And so he says, too many American drummers think that this is songo. He literally went like this. Like, that is not Cuban songo. That's a pattern. That's like a jazz guy playing a pattern. Like, this is jazz. Better do traditional grip. That's not jazz. Jazz is about improvising and spang, spang-a-lang, sang-a-soon, gotta. So Changuito says, Changuito, movement number 1. And he plays this funk groove, linear funk kind of Tower of Power inspired groove in clave that he came up with. So it's a 2-3 clave. Like this kind. It's a 2-3 clave, but the groove he plays, it's Tower of Power. So, Jared, if you could do a 2-3 clave for me. 1. Just keep that going. And I'm going to play this funk groove, and you're going to hear the clave in it. That groove right there that Jared's clapping, that's a 2-3 rumba clave, and that's a linear funk groove, linear meaning not everything hitting at the same time. And that was his Havana, Cuba, Afro-Cuban groove mixed in with Tower of Power. That's how they're related.
That's really cool, man. I've never heard that before.
I never had until I took a lesson with him, and it was just eye-opening, really eye-opening. Another thing that was eye-opening was studying with Tony Williams. I see on the back of Bay Area magazine, BAM, in San Francisco, I'm visiting there, it says, Tony Williams accepting a limited amount of private lessons. You know, I'm like, what? Tony Williams? So anyway, I got to study with Tony. It's a long story, but in these lessons, he's asking me about what drummers in metal bands are using for cymbals. I said, why do you want to know what metal band drummers are using for cymbals? He goes, because my new band is going to be a combination of Tony Williams' lifetime and like the heaviest, darkest metal stuff. And that's what he did, and then he passed away like a month after they played their first gig. And he had that big kit, you know, and double bass. He wanted to know about double bass. I said, why do you want to know about double bass? You're Tony Williams. He said, well, I did a gig and Vinnie Colaiuta played before me, and he played double pedal, and it was amazing. Show me some double pedal stuff. he asks me, right? Because he wants to know. He, when he was with Miles, was the guy that said, Miles, you play great, but you'd be better if you practiced. And Miles started practicing. Tony was always practicing. I showed him, he said, show me some double bass thing. So I said, well, you can try this thing with your heel on your left hi-hat and then your toe on your left bass drum pedal. And with your right foot, play offbeat triplets. So you're going. So I said, you could play this. And have that be your ostinato. And I started doing this thing, and he's going, okay. I come back from my lesson a week later. I knock on the door. Colleen, his wife, answers the door. Oh, Tony's out in the guest house practicing. I open the door. I said, how did you get that lick together in a week so fast? He said, I practice a lot. Yeah. But he really related jazz and hard rock.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's go on to Afro-Cuban then.
Okay, so Afro-Cuban. It's a combination of Africa and Cuba, Cuban music. And if you take, to me, the African influence, and I'm from Detroit, Michigan, so I am El Gringo, but to me, the African influence is the 6/8. Right. And that's the shuffle part. Like, I'm gonna do my worst African impression. Big shakers. Okay, all of a sudden, that's the 6/8. Then all of a sudden, in Cuba, where the conga turns into the bongo, and the clave, African music didn't have the same kind of, but all of a sudden, this clave, that's a 3/2 rumba clave. Do me a favor, Jared. Clap a 3/2 rumba clave. When I play the triplet one, I want you to give it a triplet feel. And when I go 16th, so triplet. Exactly right. That's the clave, and it works for both.
Ooh, dude, you're putting me on the spot.
Putting you to work here.
I wasn't ready for that. I'm just like, everyone's just waiting for you to crash and burn.
You didn't crash and burn once. You nailed it. But that's hard, you know, when students, when they hear guys like Daphnis Prieto or Jimmy Brantley or Horacio Negro Hernandez or Changuito, they hear them go from that 6/8, 3/2 clave to the Afro-Cuban song.
It's beautiful when they do it seamlessly.
Seamlessly, right?
You just did it. So.
Then they're doing it with the left foot. And the same thing for the 6/8.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to study Afro-Cuban music because it stretches you. Yeah. And it stretches you for all these other styles. They're all related.
Yeah. It's super cool. Okay, last one. Reggae, ska, and world beat. So you're kind of going to touch on a few of these.
A few quickly. Of them. I don't want to take too much time here, but the thing is, most drummers, myself included, when I got into the Police, I had no idea, you know, how to play a reggae groove. Where I'm not talking about red. I mean, that's the red wine, the red wine. That's pretty, you know. I'm talking about the reggae where your hi-hat leads on 1. What? Homer Simpson. Do! And then your kick drum is on 3 or 2 and 4, depending on how you're counting it. Right. Cut time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I shot the sheriff. I shot the sheriff. And then putting a fiddle. Ending a fill. 1, 2. And putting your hi-hat on one, that is so foreign
Yeah.
to what we do in North America.
Dude, I
right?
would just tip off the stool.
Yeah, so you got to practice that, and you got to practice coming out of a fill, maybe crashing on the end of 4 or 4, but not going ra-ga-ga-da-da. You know, you get one on with a hi-hat. So there's 2 kinds of reggae. Like Kirk Covington once said, straight and swung. Well, there's straight reggae. Well, Police, right? The teacher, the subject of schoolgirl fantasy. Don't stand so close to me. Straight, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4. Like that first song I played, After All, my brother's song, After All. And then there's swung, like I Shot the Sheriff. I shot the sheriff. One love. Let's get together and be alright. It's gotta be the hi-hat there, so that will flip you around. Then you'll hear fusions. Now, Tony Williams, to me, pioneered fusion, a fusion of jazz and rock.
Yeah.
To me, Santana, fusion of Mexican heritage music, folkloric music with rock. Santana, Oye Como Va,
Yeah.
Black Magic Marker, Gotta Shave Those Hairy Legs, all those songs. That's a fusion of 2 styles, rock and Mexican music, right? Then you take the Police, punk rock and reggae, Jamaican reggae. So you can hear a fusion of jazz and reggae, a band called Steps Ahead. You'll hear this groove. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ba-do-ba. Ba-do-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. A song called Pools by Don Grolick. A lot of 5-stroke rolls. Kind of jazzy, kind of Steve Gaddy,
That
right?
sounds so good.
I wish I wrote it. I could say thanks, but I didn't.
Well, you played it well, so you can say thank you.
Anyway,
Man,
they're all related, right?
This has been a beautiful lesson. Like you've just kind of taken us on a little journey through all these different styles and given us a little bit of a deep dive on your history specifically, as you know all these people who are kind of like some of the origins of these styles and of the creators. So
I've really grown up in a great, great time where I get to see all these bands. You know, when I was a kid, I saw the Beatles. I saw Buddy Rich 20 times, Maynard Ferguson, Stan Kenton, Chicago, Danny Seraphin, you know. All the bands toured all the time.
Right.
And everywhere you went, there was a band.
Right.
There were so many gigs. I mean, if you walked into a hotel lobby in the 60s, 70s, there was always a band. There was a band in the bar. There wasn't a DJ yet. And you had a wedding, there was a band. You had a high school dance, there was a band.
Yeah.
Now it's DJs. So I'm not bagging on DJs, but I like bands. I like people playing, man.
yeah.